Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all staying safe and well out there. I want to thank you all for attending CloudPoint Geographic's webinar on learning how to maintain your cemetery records in GIS. My name is Bill Steele. I handle the business development marketing for CloudPoint. And today, Aaron Strickler, one of our professional engineers, will be walking us through how GIS can help you manage your cemeteries. We're working hard to continually bring you more content and webinars. Tomorrow is our webinar about Sign-Ops, our sign inventory management system. And next week is an introduction to Parcel Fabric. And then later in the month, reprisals of our webinars on ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Enterprise. So be on the lookout for those. Make sure to spread the word. If there's anyone you know that might benefit from these learning opportunities, we'd love to have you there. Just want to quickly remind you of your functions in Zoom. So for questions, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Just click that, little window will pop open showing you how to submit a question. We'll be answering any questions here at the end of the presentation, and don't worry, they are anonymous. And if you're having trouble hearing or seeing us during the presentation, just send a comment in the chat room, and I'll be monitoring that as well. Also of note, we are premiering our first ever virtual showcase next week. That's the morning of Thursday, May 14th from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It's a public works focused showcase. It'll feature speakers from Esri and CloudPoint. It'll be fully interactive with everyone's camera on, so yeah, you might need to shave and put on a clean shirt. And yes, that includes myself. So just go to cloudpointgeo.com/virtual showcase for more information and to register for that. So what is GIS anyway? GIS stands for Geographic Information System. Most people just think of it as really fancy maps, but it's really much more than that. We use lines, points, shapes, or polygons as we call them, to record, layer, and present information. You can collect, store, analyze, manipulate, manage, and present any type of spatial and geographical data you'd like. We primarily work with municipalities and governments for everything from figuring out taxes based on land parcels, mapping and tracking storm drains, for maintenance records. But the more we worked with these entities, the more we saw what we could do and how it could benefit their communities in helping manage their cemeteries. And from there, we realized all cemeteries could benefit from our help. So those layers of data we've talked about are great, but how does that look for a cemetery? So for a cemetery's purpose, you'll need at least 2 layers, aerial imagery and a grave layer. Any additional layers will be dependent upon your needs. So this diagram shows a lot layer and a roadway path layer. And then behind each of these layers is a database or a spreadsheet. And these 2 things make up a complete GIS. So then in order to make GIS accessible to everybody, we utilize Esri's web maps and apps to bring the GIS to you. We create applications, all accessible through an internet browser, and they can be secure or public. And then these applications will allow you to view, edit, and share your data. And then samples of these applications is what Aaron will demo for you guys today. So even though the possibilities really are endless, we're going to show you 3 different options for cemetery management, ranging from the very basic to the very unique. And all these examples are actual cemeteries that we have worked for. So again, any questions that may come up during the presentation, just post them in the Q&A box at any time, and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn the screen over to Aaron. Aaron, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to get my screen shared. All right, so the samples I'm going to share with you today, like Bill said, are from 3 cemeteries that we have worked with before. And what I do want you to know is that everything is customizable. So we learned very early on in our work with cemeteries that there is no one-size-fits-all. Everyone's data starts in a different place and their needs are different. So because we don't sell software, we provide you with a flexible platform that allows us to work with you and your specific needs. And the platform we use, like Bill said, is the Esri platform, and that leverages the cloud to provide secure, user-friendly access to your GIS. So what you can see on my screen here is our first application I want to walk you through, and it's really our most basic. In those layers that Bill showed, we just have an aerial imagery is what you see here. And then to that, we're going to add points to represent the graves. So this would be for a cemetery that really doesn't have much data except maybe what's out there on the headstones, and wants an a user-friendly sort of do-it-yourself way to start collecting some of that data. This setup is really quick. So we'll fly an aerial, which is what you're seeing here, and that's really what makes this possible, is to have that high resolution imagery. We'll set up the app, create a login for you. So this application would be secure. You would need a login to access it. And then we'd leave it to you to collect that data. So what I'm going to do is show you how simple it is to add burials. So in this cemetery, this is what it would look like for you. You would not have any points, but we do already have some points started here. But I'm going to add a couple just to show you how easy it is. I am obviously on a computer, but it would look the same on a tablet with a browser open. And so if your tablet is internet enabled and has GPS, then you could easily do this while you're standing in front of the headstones to collect that information. So what I'm going to do is select the type of burial that I want to record. I'm just simply going to click on the headstone, and then this box is going to pop up for me to add the information. I'm going to add some actual information here. The dates are drop down, so you can pick a date or you can type it in if you want. Date of death, we could do the same thing. You could change, I picked a standard burial. If you decided, whoop, nope, that was a cremation, you could change that there. We also have the option to add files. So if you have a file on your computer, either an image or an obituary or some sort of record you like to attach, you can do that too. So once all that information is added, I'm going to hit save, and then it's all done. I'm going to add one more, and this time I'm going to show you how we can create a connection to find a grave. So this is Ida. And what I'm going to do is just head to find a grave for this cemetery and search for her. And what we get here in her information is an ID. And what that allows is for you to leverage all this information that someone has already collected in your data. So I'm just going to paste that number and hit save. And now if I click on her and I get a box with all that information that I added, there's also a find a grave link. So if I just open this in a new tab, it's going to take me directly to her page. And it's just a way to leverage the information that already exists. And we think that's a pretty good way to get you a lot of data quickly when you don't already have some. What this doesn't show is availability or ownership information. We don't have anything about the size of the graves. So that's really the next application I'm going to show you, is what happens when you're a larger cemetery, you have more data. And the concept is that we create a map with polygons from your data, whether you have 2-scale maps or you just know what size your graves are, for all the graves in the cemetery, and that allows you to track not only interments, but grave status. So is it owned or occupied? Do you not know the status of that grave? And so for these cemeteries, we provide a collection of web-based applications. So I'm going to walk you through 4. This manager application, an available lots application, a way to look up graves, and dashboards. And so this manager application, like the one I previously showed you, would require a login. This is meant just for your staff. And so it's similar in how we create records, except that it is already there. So I'm going to create a sale on this grave. And because the polygons are already drawn, I can just search for them by their ID. So here's a grave here. Click on it again. There we go. And I'm gonna edit that grave. So that again brings up the box that helps you enter your data. This is the part that's fully customizable. You can add whatever data you need to keep track of here. I'll also note that the way this cemetery is set up is for 1 sale and 1 burial per grave, but there are ways for us to easily allow you to attach more than 1 interment per grave. That's just not how this one is set up. So for this one, the owner name is down here. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I bought it. And so I'm going to change its status to owned. And that is all I'm going to do. Similarly, I could add a record if I wanted. So that is a sale. And then a burial, again, is very similar. I'm going to go to a different grave. I'm going to hit the editor so I can edit it. So it is owned by John Doe. It until now is not occupied, so I'm going to mark that it's occupied. I'm going to say that John Doe is buried there. Any information I wanted to add, let's say Friday and today. Add attachments if you want, and I'll hit save. And that's how simple it is to add this data. Now, we would pre-populate any current data that you have in these records. So you wouldn't start from scratch, you would start from where you're at today and add the new records in. The other thing I wanted to show you in this map is that I know that there are spots in aisles or next to graves that sometimes you want to sell. And so what happens if John's wife says, well, I want to buy this grave? You have the option to just draw your grave. So I'm going to hit Control to snap it as best I can. And the rest I'm kind of going to hand draw in here. Then I'll double click. And so that simply, I've created a grave that now I can say is owned by Jane Doe. And I'll hit save there. The other thing we can add to these maps are additional layers. So we have the graves and the lots and the sections, but we can also add utilities. So in this map, we have both points for this is a septic tank. We've got a gas line, an electric line here, a gas line here, and then a water line here. So a way that you can easily see your utilities. And then if I'm going to add a new grave, I'll know that, hey, maybe I don't want to draw one here because it's right on top of the water line. So there are any assets you have, we could add to the map for you. So trees or flagpoles or benches, if it's tied, if it can be tied to the ground, then we can mark that for you. Lastly, so like Bill showed, this is run by GIS behind this. This is a pretty simple form, but behind it is a powerful GIS. So we can leverage that to see this data in a different way. So this is data that's being pulled directly from the data that I'm changing. So we've got total number of graves, we've got available graves. Actually, if I refresh this, that 1821 should become 1822. So it immediately reflects the changes. This might be useful to show your boards, or if you wanted to show the public, you can break it down however you need to. I have broken over here down by section. But it just shows you, hey, there's 4,500 graves that we're not sure what that status is. Maybe if we go investigate some of those, we can have more available lots. And speaking of available lots, we have one of the other applications will show you or the public, or however you want to share that, your available lots. So as I zoom in, I'm going to zoom over to where I bought my lot. As you zoom in, you can easily see which lots are available and which lots are not. This also can be taken out into the field. With this circle button here, it'll zoom you right to your location. I am nowhere near this, so I'm not going to push that button right now. But you'll get a blue dot, and it'll show you where you are as you're walking through the cemetery, which to be able to sell, I think would be very handy. Again, you could make this public, or you could keep it secure with a login. What the cemetery has chosen to do is make a search application public. So this is the city's website. The data I was using is demo data, but this is tied to their actual data. And so from their website, they have a link to a public search app. If your cemetery doesn't have a website, we can certainly give you an easily shareable link. A splash screen to give any information you'd like to give. And it's very simple to use. I'm going to search for a couple names. It's going to zoom me right to their location. And let's say I want to visit a couple relatives, so I'm going to mark up this map with the places that I want to go. So I'm going to put a flag here, and I'm going to go back, find another Smith. And I'm using flags, but you can draw on the map however you need to. And now what you have the option to do is zoom out so you can see both of those. I mean, zoom out as far as you need to kind of get to know where you're at. And with a simple print button, when it works, you can print this. It'll make a PDF inside your browser, and then the user can print that and take that with them to the cemetery to help them find their loved ones. What we hope is that would reduce calls to your offices and allow your staff to work on other things. I'm not sure why it is. Try one more time. Well, live demos are fun. But again, it just pops up in your browser a PDF that you can print. Maybe I'll try that when we're done. So the next group, the next cemetery I want to show you is a more advanced cemetery. So what they wanted was a routing application. There it is. Just show you what this looks like. It's as simple as clicking prints, and then it'll come up. I'm going to keep talking while that's going. They didn't want just people to be able to find and put flags down on a map. They wanted to route people to their location. I will come back to this. And so what they wanted to do, clear this and zoom out, was to have turn-by-turn routing. So this is a large cemetery in the Chicagoland area. They've got 50,000 interments and 77,000 graves. And so what they wanted to do was route people from the office which I will get there. I'm logged in through a couple different computers, so I apologize for the speed of this one. But they have a kiosk set up in their office. I'm going to start searching while we talk through this. Because of the remoteness, it's a little bit slower than usual, so I'm just going to have that go while we're talking. They have a kiosk in the office where people walk in and they see this screen. They search for a name and it will route them to the grave of their loved one. The reason this particular cemetery wanted something more advanced than what we showed before was that, for one, they have a one-way street here, so they did not want people to pull in, go to the kiosk, and then turn around and drive this way. They wanted to make sure they were telling people to come through this way. They also have this bridge that is out, so they didn't want to route people through the bridge. And they, it's a very well laid out cemetery. So as I zoom in, they wanted the directions to be exactly the way they would give them in person. So follow the route on the map, stop at the painted 2 on the side of the road. So the cemetery has their rows in the imagery. You can see the painted numbers, and so the route takes them to the closest number and then tells them how many graves to walk in. So you can count as you're going, and even if you lose track a little bit, it gets you really close to where you want to go, which is important in a really large cemetery like this. So what the user does is hit print, and then there's a printer right next to their kiosk, and they walk away with this, which gives them the map and directions, written directions for them to find the gravesite that they're looking for. So that was an advanced example that I have. Other examples of advanced applications would be a custom application. Maybe you already have a data structure that just doesn't quite fit the more simple structure that we can create with these applications. We can build you a custom application, or we can create a 3D mausoleum model too, which we are working on a couple of those now. In fact, one of them for this cemetery. So you would have a wall view of the cemetery, of the mausoleum. So got a couple minutes left. I just wanted to walk you through what our process is like. We would preview your data, talk to you about what of these options are the best. Is there a combination of these options that works best for you? What's your data look like now, and how much effort will it take to get it into a digital format if it's not already there? And then the first thing we would do is a drone flight, and to get that imagery lined up well, like you can see here, the clearer imagery is our drone flight, and the fuzzier imagery is just imagery from the county. So it is right on top. They are both lined up exactly where they would be in the real world. So we do that by spray painting marks on the ground. We survey those points with GPS, and we use that in our desktop software to align the imagery to the real world. While we're out there, we'll collect sample headstone data. So we won't collect every headstone unless that's what's necessary and what you want for your projects. But we will do that so that when we combine the mapping and the database information, we can have a good sample size to double check that things are lining up. So then back in the office, we create the polygon layers based on whether, again, if you have to scale maps or not. We can draw the maps for you. From there, we'll relate the records, your barrel records, your sales records, whatever you already have on hand, we'll relate those to the polygons. And so that creates your GIS. And from there, we create maps and apps, giving you user-friendly access to that system that you can keep secure, or you can share portions of that. It's not one size fits all. We're not selling software, but we're providing you a flexible platform to manage your records and help you make better decisions. With that, Bill, I'll see if we have any questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Erin. Let's see, we've got one here. How do you handle confidentiality with families?
So this particular cemetery that we're looking at had a few requests that a couple of the names be hidden from public view. So that is as easy as adding a field and being able to hide the ones that you want to hide.
Okay, good. We have another one here, kind of a two-part. Would Survey 123 be useful in this situation? I know it has the ability to take pictures and drop GPS pins, which sounds pretty useful for noting graves. Did you guys have a reason to avoid this program?
I don't think so. I think that it started with clients who were more comfortable using desktop software and then moving them to a tablet. So they were more used to using a browser than an application. But certainly you could work those two things in there. What I don't know off the top of my head is if we could use our aerial imagery in a Survey 123 map. That might be possible, but Survey 123 is not my expertise. So that might be one reason, is that we really need for this process, for the first one I showed you specifically, but really for all of them, we need that high resolution imagery. And I think this is a good way to utilize that.
All right, and let's see, one more here. How do you handle mapping mausoleums?
All right, well, there's two answers to that. Let me pull up the first cemetery we were looking at here. So there's actually a mausoleum here. In this particular mausoleum, we laid the crypts out flat. In other mausoleums, we will stack the polygons on top of each other. So if there were polygons under here, I would get if there were 5 polygons stacked there, I would get all 5 of those, and I could just arrow through to get the one I wanted. That's how we handle that in 2D. In 3D, though, we would use ArcGIS Indoors and provide a 3D web scene so that you can actually kind of walk through the mausoleum and see the walls like we're seeing the graves here. That's a really neat thing and something we're excited to be able to offer.
Great. Well, doesn't look like there's any more questions for now. So guys, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here. I'm going to share back over to my screen here. So again, Aaron, thank you very much for going through that. I hope everybody learned a little something. And if you would like more information to get a hold of us, you can visit cloudpointgeo.com/cemeteries. Also, I have my email and phone number up there. You contact me directly. And of course, we're all over social media. So search around for CloudPoint Geographics and share and like and follow us all over there. And other than that, thank you for attending our webinar. And again, any questions, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us.